for the hills. If it's just not possible to live, then you have to find a different solution, which was the rising against the Republic.
Franco had begun with curious discretion. He had joined the army coup in Morocco with expressly limited aims of restoring order and crushing the revolution. But his proclamation did not invoke the church or any crusade. He did, to be sure, hint darkly about foreign influences assailing traditional values. What was surprising to some was that his proclamation concluded with the unexpectedly democratic slogans fraternity, liberty, equality. But that, he said, was the absolute order of their priority. The first army decrees gave instant comfort to its middle-class supporters. That was fairly easy. All the land the Republican reforms had shared out was to go back to the owners. Trade unions were banned. So were all political parties of the Popular Front. But first, the army had to face the fact that its initial coup had failed. Armed working-class resistance had defeated the army rising in 5 key cities. Spain was divided. The Republican government held Madrid, the Basque Country, and nearly half the rest of Spain. And the Nationalist command was split. General Mola in the north, and in the south Franco with his Army of Africa. The Nationalists' original plan had been to install General Sanjurjo as commander-in-chief, but he died in a plane crash as he left Portugal to take command in Spain. It left a difficult gap. Two months later, the rebel generals gathered for a meeting in Salamanca. A strong lobby for Franco was gaining ground. All but one voted in favor of a single commander-in-chief. The sole objection was from Miguel Cabanillas, who had been temporarily appointed leader of the military junta. Next, Franco was proposed. Again, all but Cabanillas agreed. The decision was delayed. What was desperately needed was a man whom all under arms on the insurgent side would support. Already the insurgents were split with differences. There was the old Peninsular Army. There was the Civil Guard, the Army of Africa, Spanish units and Moors, let alone the armed militias of the fascist Phalange and columns of monarchists and traditionalists. All these armed factions had conflicting expectations of their leader. Alone among the rivals, Franco seemed to satisfy the factions. He was the man in the middle. His reputation too as a soldier ensured him popular support, and this was immediately reinforced by events.
Driving on to the relief of Toledo, the advance of General Franco's columns from the west is pushed on remorselessly. White troops and Moors, well armed and trained in modern methods of warfare, supported by powerful artillery, overcome the resistance of government militia, whose retreat is on Madrid rather than Toledo. General Franco arrives to embrace and honor Colonel Moscado, the brave and bearded commander.
The victory at Toledo inflated Franco's prestige. Even before his appointment as commander-in-chief was announced, his supporters were planning higher office for him. They proposed he should be not only supreme military commander, but head of the government. Some of his colleagues were doubtful. Nevertheless, Francisco Franco emerged as the undisputed leader and called himself head of state. On October 1st, 1936, Franco was granted all powers of the new state of Spain, at least for the duration of the war.
My personal reaction to Franco's appointment was one of relief. Nationalist soldiers were saying, a single command wins a war. A split command loses a war. Franco's appointment was unquestioned. There wasn't anyone else who could hold a candle to him, and it was a source of great relief all round.
The army generals who appointed Franco as head of government, as a military necessity, may not have realized that they were establishing a personal dictatorship. Many different groups had supported their rising. First, the Conservatives, who had supported the right-wing parliamentary coalition Theda before the war. Second, the Monarchists, who sought the restoration of King Alfonso. Third, the Carlists, mainly from Navarre. They were also called Traditionalists. They were religious, supported a king too, albeit a different claimant, and fought for their regional rights. Fourth, the Falange, the fascist party, outlawed by the Republic. They claimed to transcend the right and left of politics, but called for a radical social revolution. General Moller, for one, was fully aware of the wild complexity of the various factions. He had successfully negotiated the support of both the Carlists and the Falange for the plot. Soon after Franco's appointment, Moller spoke to Pedro Sainz Rodriguez, a right-wing monarchist intellectual who had joined the uprising and later joined Franco's government.
I remember very well that there was a large armchair in front of the desk, and General Moller was sitting on the arm of it with his feet on the seat, and he asked me, "What do you think will happen when the war ends?" I said there will be a problem with all the different political interests. He said, "I'm pleased to hear you say that. When the war is over, it will be necessary to have some sort of constitution and parliament."
In Franco's plan, there was no question of a parliament. The army decree gave all powers of the new state to him. He referred to himself as head of state twice in his first proclamation.
Viva España!
For many people, his own political ideology was a mystery. Did he have a political theory?
Many people thought that he was a man who was keeping a secret, but I called him the Sphinx without a secret. He had the air of a Sphinx, but there was no secret. He was silent on many subjects because he had no opinion on them.
Franco had never claimed to be a politician, but he was of the intuitive right, an instinctive defender of capitalism. With his brother Nicholas as secretary, he prepared his program. No working-class trade unions. Help for peasants, but land for landowners. Concord with the church. Above all, no democracy. That way, perhaps, the working-class opposition could be wiped out forever.
Un Estado totalitario armonizará en España el funcionamiento de todas las capacidades y energías del país, en el que dentro de la unidad nacional el trabajo, estimado como el más ineludible de los deberes, será el único exponente de la voluntad popular. Y merced a él podrá manifestarse el auténtico sentir del pueblo español a través de aquellos órganos naturales que, como la familia, el municipio, la asociación y la corporación, harán cristalizar en realidades nuestro ideal supremo.
These aims of the Spanish right could only be secured by repression. Even before Franco took command, working-class resistance was physically extinguished by advancing nationalist columns. Franco himself continued the purge.
Franco estaba un día que fui yo a hablar con él, que me llamó para una interview que le habían hecho.
One day when I went to see Franco, he called me for an interview before I was a minister. He was sitting at a table drinking chocolate, dunking bits of bread and biscuits into it, and he had a heap of files on the left and was classifying them. Some he put on the table, others on a chair. Afterwards, on leaving, I asked an adjutant what were those files which General Franco had. They were the death sentences. Those which he placed on the chair were for signing and the others for revision. It was something done quite calmly. For him, it was simply a military matter.
There were few critics of these methods in the nationalist zone. Franco's supporters were united in the common cause of defeating the Republic. But as to what to replace it with, there was much dispute. First, there were the fascists, the Falange. Before the war and his imprisonment, their leader, José Antonio, had tried to present a doctrine of seductive simplicity.